Berlin, May, 1945. The tremendously destructive battle to capture the heart of Nazi Germany ends with a Soviet victory. The city is in ruins, years of British and American air raids, and the recent street fighting has reduced much of the city to a shell in the heart of Berlin. On Museum Island, the great buildings are shattered, but out in front of Berlin Cathedral, opposite the famous Altes Museum, a mystery is about to emerge. A photograph taken in May 1945 shows two British World War I tanks sitting Gerenuk outside Berlin Cathedral, a wrecked tiger or a panther. Okay, but a pair of World War I British tanks had they been used by the Germans and the final desperate fighting? Even more importantly, how had they ended up in Berlin? In 1945, the answer to this little mystery has been found, and it's a story that encompasses many of the great events of European history. Following the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, a civil war broke out during 1918 to 20 British and Allied forces fought in northern Russia on the side of the White Russians against the Bolshevik Red Army. Britain also gave the Whites material aid, including over 60 tanks, mostly Mark V's from World War I. Many of these tanks were in turn captured by the Red Army and used against the Whites, and many were also abandoned by the British. When they left Russia by 1931, all of the Civil War-era tanks were in depots, tanks, schools, or on firing ranges. In 1938, the last 15 Mark V tanks were disposed of. They were sent in pairs as memorials to the cities of Kharkov, Leningrad, Kiev, Archangel Rostov-on-Don, Smolensk, and Voroshilov Grad in Smolensk. A pair were placed either side of the cathedral gates, and there they sat until 1941 when the city of Smolensk was captured by the German army. It seems that at some point in 1941 or early 1942, the tanks were sent to Berlin. There they were set up on display along with captured artillery in the Lustgarten, a large open space opposite the Berlin Cathedral, a museum island. The nearby Zoic House Armory was converted into a museum housing smaller military items. It was in this position of the two tanks were found by the Red Army. In May 1945, the question persists. Have they been used in the fighting in Berlin as static exhibits without functioning weapons? Their use would have been limited to pillboxes, though doubts exist over whether they would have been used as they were both in very exposed positions and had only half-an-inch thick steel armor. They lingered on in East Berlin in an increasingly dilapidated condition until they suddenly disappeared. One photo exists of workers cutting one up, so in all probability the two British World War I tanks ended up in a Berlin scrapyard a few months after the war. However, though no Mark V's existed, Smolensk anymore, a total of 6 World War I tanks remain on display today across Russia and the Ukraine far more than exist in Britain. I hope you've enjoyed this little story. If you have, please do subscribe and remember to share. Many